All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks for being here. If this is your first time finding us, my name is Jonathan. This is my wife, Blakely. We own and operate Digital Barbell. We're an online training and nutrition coaching company, meaning that we work with our clients through this thing called the internet. Our clients are all over the world. We deliver their workout programs to them in our app. We coach them through the internet, and we're helping people all over the place. So glad that you're here. We've got a great question and answer episode for you on this episode. We're going to be talking about what happens to your muscles in between sets when you're lifting weights, how much protein you should eat based on how much you weigh, a few other things that people haven't thought about probably, and how much protein you need based on your training volume also, and other things too. So we're going to get into all that stuff today and some other ones. Real quick on the sponsor for today, we're sponsored by Coca-Cola, zero sugar, zero caffeine. Blakely, tell everybody why we've got these in the house these days.
Yeah, I literally probably haven't had a Coke in I was thinking 2 decades, maybe even 3 decades.
It's a long time.
Not having a Coke. And I just craved one, and it was I was just like, I just want a Coke. And I didn't want the sugar, and I didn't want the caffeine. I didn't even know they made this type of product, but zero sugar, zero caffeine. Lots of taste.
They're pretty good.
They are. I think it's just hot. It's like summertime. You want something refreshing like that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. They're delicious. And
I will say, just real quick disclaimer: if you're somebody who's like, those things are bad for you, they're going to kill you. They trick your body into thinking that you're drinking sugar and make you gain weight. Not true. The research is conclusive that you would have to pretty much quit your job and drink these all day and be the only thing that you eat or drink to get anywhere near the amount of artificial sweetener that's damaging or potentially damaging to your health. So if this kind of drink helps you stay on track with your nutrition and gives you something to look forward to drinking, go for it.
Man, back in the day, my favorite, I wish I still had this thing. This is going to date me, but when we used to go snow skiing with my family, we went to Colorado for the first time. Aspen before you could not go to Aspen affordably, and I got this sweet sweatshirt that said Colorado but written like Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, I rocked that thing.
I
wish I knew where. I mean, I keep everything.
I'm guessing you outgrew it.
I know, but I keep everything. I cannot believe that's one thing I can remember that I do not have.
That's
but man,
awesome.
It was cool. It was
that.
It was like the old Gap style with the blocks, like a gray block here and blue on the other side.
Yeah. Probably back in style.
I'm sure it is back in style. Man, I need that shirt.
All right, well, let's get into these questions today.
All right, first question. What is happening? What is happening physically to your muscles during recovery between sets?
Yeah.
So the idea is, you're resting between your working sets.
Not everybody does that in their workouts. We've had a lot of people start working with us, and it's just mind blown.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to jump around and do burpees in your rest periods, or just mash all your exercises up into one circuit to keep your heart rate going. No, there's a deliberate reason to rest between sets. And we're talking about strength training. You do a set of bicep curls and then you rest. You do a set of squats and then you rest. You're giving your muscles a chance to do something in that time period, and that's what this person's asking.
Yeah, and this is one thing
what's actually happening.
We educate our clients on when they first start working with us is, the different rest periods. Like he said, if you're doing a heavy set of squats, a heavy set of press, a heavy set of deadlifts, that rest time between sets is going to be different than if you're, say, working with dumbbells, or if you're doing a set of reverse flies or curls or rows.
Good point. We've talked a lot about different rest periods on other podcast episodes. So unlike cardio and long duration stuff that relies on oxygen and fat to produce energy, heavy weightlifting sets and hard efforts like that rely on ATP, creatine phosphate, and glucose slash glycogen in our muscles to create that energy. So we're depleting those things when we're doing a really hard set of weightlifting. So at the basic level, what's happening when you're resting is you're replenishing all of those things. ATP molecules are rebinding together so that they can be broken again and create muscle contractions. You're restoring the amount of glucose that is in your bloodstream and stored in your muscles in the form of glycogen. All that's regenerating as you're resting. So there's a point to letting your muscles actually rest. It's not just you don't want to just keep your heart rate up to keep your calorie burn up. You want to restore the thing that's allowing you to do a really hard effort with your muscles. Also, the other thing that happens when you're doing a set of weightlifting is if you think about like your car creates exhaust because the motor is running, that's kind of like the byproduct of the combustion of the engine that gets the thing going. Your body creates waste in your muscles as you're burning energy also. So what your body has to do in the rest periods in between is flush all that out, and it uses the circulation in your blood to get lactate out, to get hydrogen out, basically all the metabolic byproducts of muscle contraction so that you can do another set later. If you've ever been doing like a set of bicep curls and it really starts to burn and you feel that fatigue, that's all the byproducts building up in your muscle. That's why if you do blood flow restriction bands and you cut off the circulation, that happens much more quickly because you're not allowing blood to flush that stuff out. So that's one of the reasons that we rest also, to restore the ATP, to restore the amount of glycogen in the muscle, to flush out all the metabolic byproducts and get ready to do the next thing. And then on like a bigger picture also, your central nervous system is in charge of telling the motor units in your muscle like, hey, we're going to do this work. So you do reach a certain amount of fatigue overall with your CNS, especially with really heavy efforts or near max rep efforts with like a heavy compound lift. So you're letting your central nervous system replenish itself and chill out during rest periods also. So really all three of those things are what's happening overall when you rest between sets.
Did you talk about the benefits of creatine yet?
Yeah, so creatine, we talked about weightlifting being driven by ATP bonds being broken. Well, the P in ATP stands for phosphate. So when we supplement with creatine monohydrate, it gets stored as creatine phosphate, and that phosphate can be donated to ATP to replenish the ATP bond more quickly. So even during a set, as you're depleting ATP, that creatine is on board to be able to replenish that ATP more quickly. And then also when you're resting between sets, it basically just gives you more soldiers in the army to be able to do more work, which is how creatine helps improve performance overall, just by giving you more in the tank to do harder efforts, not by it's not like a steroid that just automatically makes you bigger. It just allows you to do more work because you're regenerating ATP more efficiently.
So if you don't rest between sets, we have a little guide on our free page product. So you can just go to digitalbarbell.com/free. All of our free products are there, and you can download this guide that will help you like learn how much rest you need based on the level of weight that you're lifting and what kind of exercise you're doing. So if you're a person that just does your set of curls, drops the waits 15 seconds, and then does another set of curls or whatever the movement is, check out this document and just see how you feel and start to test like what your body, what rest periods work for you, for your body.
Totally.
All right. Number 2, does the protein rule scale with training volume? For example, is my body using 1 gram of body weight per 1 gram of body weight if I'm only training 1 to 2 times per week? Or does it only matter if your training volume is sufficient?
Yeah. So this person has heard the rule, like eat a gram of protein per pound that you weigh.
So they're basically saying if they're not training that much right now, is their body still using that gram per gram of body weight?
Right. And how does that relate to like the training volume that you're doing also?
Yes.
I would just say in general, yes, the how much protein you eat should scale with your training volume. It also should track with not just your weight, your weight, but also with how much lean body mass you have too.
Just wait a second.
Like
you
muscle
said
mass.
Yes to the question, but to what?
Does the protein rule scale with training volume?
Okay. Does the question?
Yes. In general terms, the more training you're doing, the more protein you need. And then that also, your protein needs scale up with how much muscle you already have on your body. And we can, if you think about it logically, it makes total sense, because what is the point of eating protein in the first place? It's to supply your body with the constituent parts of protein, meaning the amino acids, that can be available in the bloodstream to go to the damaged tissue, meaning your existing muscle, to repair it, to make it stronger, and to build new tissue. So the more muscle you already have, the more protein it's going to take to repair all the little micro tears that you do during a workout. And then the reason that your protein needs scale with volume, meaning like how many sets, reps, and how much weight you're lifting in your program is, because you're causing more damage that's going to require more amino acids to repair the damage that you do during your workout. So those two things do both scale up. Now, if you're like somebody who weighs, if you're my height, 5'9", and you weigh 250 pounds, but you're 40% body fat, you wouldn't want to eat 240 grams of protein per day, because a lot of your weight is fat and it doesn't need to be supported with that much protein. We would look more individually at the type of training that you're doing and how much muscle you probably actually have, and then scale down way less than a gram per pound. Because the point isn't just to eat more protein. The point is to supply your body with enough amino acids to build new tissue and to repair the damage that you have. Because the way that you build muscle and strength overall is you look at the two variables in the equation, the catabolic thing that we're doing in the gym where we're breaking down the muscle tissue, and then anabolic thing we do by eating enough protein, sleeping, and eating enough calories. And we want to outweigh all the damage that we're doing, so we end up in a net positive, and we can build new muscle tissue and heal the damage that we've already done. So if this person in particular says, if I'm only training 1 to 2 times per week, do I need that 1 gram of protein per pound? I would say no. Unless your workouts are 2 hours long and you're doing 5 hard sets of every move, you're not causing enough muscle damage in 1 to 2 workouts to require 1 gram per pound. And this is even assuming like you're relatively lean and have a decent amount of muscle mass. I would say that person could err more on the side of like the 0.7 grams per pound per day on how much protein they're having. Now, and then maybe you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't lift weights. I just mostly do cardio, or I'm training for a triathlon or whatever, or I do CrossFit or Orange Theory. Like, how much protein do I need? You're probably not incurring enough muscle damage either, unless you're training 5, 6, 7 days per week to require a gram of protein per pound per day, unless you're jacked, you're really, really lean, and you're constantly sore. Like, if you're doing enough volume to where you're sore all the time, well, then you probably do need more protein. And a sign that you're sore, if you are sore, that could be a sign that you're not getting enough protein because you're not putting in enough of the things.
Maybe you need more protein, because you'll be like, you'll do something and it'll be like, oh, I'm sore. I'm like, you're not sore immediately.
I get, a lot of people get DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. I get instant onset muscle soreness, but it doesn't last. Like, I'm not sore. I can feel
into
that
the car,
night.
He's like, I'm already sore.
I'm already sore. Maybe it's not sore. I'm actually sore today from what I did yesterday.
I'm already sore.
But yeah, and like if you're somebody who is like doing a circuit, like I do chest, back, and arms on one day, I do leg, and you're just kind of repeating the same workout over and over and over again, and you don't actually know how to use intensity and push close to failure and use progressive overload, you're probably not incurring a lot of muscle damage either. That requires you to eat a lot of protein.
Check out some of those free products on Digital Barbell. Get some training programs.
Yeah. So I hope that answered your question. Protein needs do scale with training volume, absolutely. Yeah. And I can never think of the word the second time that they scale with how much lean mass you have also.
Okay. All right, third question. What motivates you, and what do you do if it's not there for you? Wow, that's a good question. Let me tell you a little story about today.
What are you talking about? I'm always motivated to do everything I need to do.
It is true. Like today, I would even use today as an example. Right now we're living full time in our Airstream, and right now we're going to the YMCA, and we've talked about this a few times on this channel. But living in this is different than living in our house where our gym was right there. So, like driving to the gym, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes we run errands after because we're already out in the world. It takes a lot longer period of time to go to the gym now than it ever did before, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, let's just get the dumbbells out and do a little quick workout out here in front of our trailer. Mm-hmm. And, I think whenever I think about that, I really start to future cast and think about what do I feel like whenever I let myself fall back on something like either don't do it or do a lesser version. Mm-hmm. What do I feel like instantly you're like, okay, this is a good idea. But in the moments after, moments and hours after, you're like, I should have done the full thing. I should have done that. And so, more often than not, relying on habit versus motivation is like the first like kind of thing to get over. The hurdle to get over is like, you're never going to always feel motivated to do whatever it is. You have to build habits that get you into the workout room if that's the habit you're trying to build.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say, like, well, what you went through today, like, you didn't really rely on a habit. You were able to look forward and know. Kind of
like, two different brain streams right there, but yeah.
I think that's a way underrated skill, is to know yourself well enough, have enough awareness to be like, if I convince myself to just do a little bit of something, whatever outside the camper,
I'm going to be disappointed in myself. And like in one workout in the long run of things does not do anything physically to you. I didn't do as much on that workout. I didn't push as hard. I just did a few bench presses and curls outside my camper, and I called it a workout. Yeah. One workout is not doing anything, but it also does do something to the consistency, to like your habits. Like, think about like if you like let yourself hit that snooze button and you're like, let me sleep in 10 minutes. You get in the habit of 10 minutes, and then you're like, let me sleep in 15 minutes. Before you know it, you're like sleeping in 30 minutes. You're late, and you have to like rebuild that habit of getting up at the time that you originally were getting up. And that's kind of like what any of this is just like, if you let yourself slip little by little, you're going to end up back where you were. But if you keep that motivation going, if you keep that consistency going, you're going to keep moving forward. And so my point about today was like, I knew if we could just get out of the house, I hate to say this is a house, but if we could just get out of our current house and get into the gym, I would feel better. I would get a better workout. I would leave there. I'm always leaving there like, heck yeah, I feel good. I'm glad I did it. So I just needed to get to the other side.
What about bigger picture though, like beyond that? Like, why, if you're not going to rely on motivation, what matters to you about being in shape anyway? It's got to be something deeper that is more motivating.
Yeah, like,
what do you want for your future?
Right. And I think that's where a little bit of that long-term thinking comes in, of like, okay, I want to be a person that like lives, an independent life as long as I can. I want to be able to like get on the ground and get up. I want to be able to get off the couch. I want to be able to get off the toilet for as long as I can. And if you like, CrossFit has this excellent, I was just thinking about this the other day, that I needed to start doing some more overhead squats because of this chart right here. They have like a sickness, wellness, fitness chart. And the further you can like push yourself into the fitness, the further you are away from sickness. And so it's kind of like a dial that like, if you're over here and they use overhead squat, which I think is such a great example, because a lot of people are like, why are you making me overhead squat? If you can overhead squat a weight, any weight over your head, you are so far into the fitness realm, and then do like overhead squat, do some burpees, do some pull-ups or whatever it is, like, then if something like derails you, you don't really fall back. You just fall back into like the wellness. You don't come all the way back into the sickness category. But if you're teetering over here between like sickness and wellness, and you're like on the edge, and then you're any little setback, you're going to be into the sickness category, and that's not what we want for ourselves.
So what's motivating then is to like, well, what motivates you to work out, to eat well, even when you're not motivated, is keeping that perspective of like, I want to stay as far as I can over to the fitness side of the spectrum. Because it's like you said, it's not any one thing that you do or any one workout that gets you there. But, like, I lived a long part of my life with a whole lot of unhealthy habits, and I know how easy it is to stay in that when you're there.
Yeah.
So I think when you're not motivated, you have to be willing to be vigilant to fight against the natural tendency to want to revert back to the habits, assuming you were somebody who, had bad habits, broke free of them, and is on a different path right now. Because I say this to clients all the time, like when we've reached whatever outcome we want, whether that's fat loss or muscle building or whatever, I'd say like, you're not going to lose these results all at once. The way people regain weight or get out of shape or stop working out is a really gradual process.
It's like the alarm clock example.
I say it's really ironic that the thing that makes weight loss so difficult is the exact same thing that makes it so easy to regain the weight. It happens slowly.
Yeah.
You don't notice the slow burn of the creeping back in of the habits that kept you the way that you were before you got in shape. So,
and it's the sum of the whole of everything you're doing. Is it like, are you consistently getting in your workouts, like and are they quality workouts? Are you consistently eating the nutritious foods, that sustain you and everything like that? And the more times that you let I'm not motivated to do this, let me slip back to just let myself give today a pass, but tomorrow I'll get back at it. And then the more days you do that in a row, you'll have more passes than I actually did the thing.
And I think just to wrap this thing up is a really practical thing to do when you're not motivated is just go start, because you'll see that just taking that first step is usually the hardest part in a time of low motivation. And then once you start doing the thing, you start getting the dopamine, the endorphins start rushing, and it just kind of keeps snowballing. So you don't have to commit to doing everything. Just do the next thing,
and
it'll take care of yourself.
Push yourself to start, because I think a lot of times we can convince ourselves that there's an excuse, I'm a perfectionist or whatever. I need to do the whole workout. If I can't do it all, I shouldn't do any of it. No, don't let yourself be fooled by feeling good about that excuse. Get in there and start.
Yeah.
Even if you can do a half of it, it's better off than not doing the full thing.
Yep.
All right.
This next question kind of goes hand in hand with this one.
It does. This is a good question too. What does it mean to live with integrity?
I always think about the example that Ben Bergeron gives or has given on Chasing Excellence, where it's living with integrity means taking the shopping cart back in the grocery store parking lot, even if nobody's going to know that you didn't take it back.
No one knows you did that. Yeah.
That's the part that's integrity. If somebody's watching you and you're well, if I don't take this cart back, they're going to judge me. That's not integrity. That's just you trying to avoid feeling guilty or looking like a jerk. It's really just doing the thing, knowing you're doing it for yourself. Living with integrity is doing things that you say matter to you, having principles, and then living your life in alignment with those principles, even if nobody's going to know it except you and God.
Yep.
You got anything else to say about integrity?
No, that's great. I think one example in our life of integrity is trying to be an example for our clients. We're trying to stay just in the last question, today, okay, oh, no one's going to know if we don't work out today or whatever, or if we don't do the thing that we're asking them all to do, but we'll know, you know, and I think living with integrity is I think there's no question that our clients know that we're going to do the thing we're asking them to also do.
That's a good point. I think there's this conflict that happens inside your body and in your brain when you say one thing and you do another thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that makes fitness so hard, is because that brings guilt and shame into the equation, which is why having values in the first place is so important. Things that you say matter to you, and then acting accordingly, being that person that does the things that you say matter. It eliminates that internal resistance that you feel when you're not living in alignment with your goals.
And I think that if it's if there's something that it's a struggle for you to you kind of know your path, but you're kind of conflicted by maybe the outside forces and stuff like that, getting yourself into community that helps you live with integrity with the way that you want, getting involved in the fitness community in some way, if that's gonna if that helps you stay motivated, because it is truly motivating to be around other like-minded people. And you just you somehow, even now that we're doing this, when we get into groups of people that are traveling in their trailer, you just click because you have all this stuff to talk about. Yeah. And so,
I like that.
Okay.
Oh, this is a good one.
Is working out with bands as effective as weights?
What do you have to say about that?
I see what you wrote, but I think it's true. He kind of wrote short answer no, long answer yes.
Possibly.
and it's true. We give our clients who go on trips and things like that band workouts, probably more for the reasons we were just talking about, to keep that consistency, to keep that habit alive.
Yeah.
So that whenever they return, they're not just completely derailed and out of the habit.
Yeah.
Of working out.
Right. And if you're a beginner, you can make progress using bands. our bodies are really, really smart, but they're also kind of dumb, especially our muscles. They really only know that they're working. They only know like they're encountering resistance.
Yeah.
So that resistance could come from your own weight standing up out of a air squat, could come from a band, come from a barbell, a machine, whatever. Like all it knows is that your muscle is working. It's against that resistance. But they're smart in that they adapt quickly to whatever the challenge you throw at them is. So like if you're brand new to exercise, you're going to get stronger doing air squats, but not for long because you don't have a way to really increase the load on that. And that's what's required to continue to get fitter and stronger, is that progressive overload and challenging the muscle with new challenges as your body adapts. So the reason that's tough with bands is you're limited to how many bands you have. It's really hard to quantify the tension that you can create with a band. Like, you know, how do you know that it was harder this time if the pounds didn't get heavier? Sure, the bands are rated in pounds, but the resistance changes all the time depending on how far away you stand and
how wide you keep your feet. If you're standing on the band, you can change the resistance in a lot of different ways.
Right. So it's a really challenging way to like know that you're consistently making progress, because it's super hard to quantify. Plus, like with bands, the resistance curve changes a lot. Like when a band is really stretched out, there's not a lot of resistance on it. But as you get further and further into the range of the motion and the band becomes shorter, it gets harder. Well, muscles don't really like to work with varying resistance. Like they would prefer the same resistance throughout the range of motion, so they're being challenged equally. You can still get a good pump with them, but like I said, harder to quantify, harder to know that you're using progressive overload.
So basically for the short term, yes, they're an okay thing to start with. They're an okay thing to use in a hiatus from your normal routine of getting into the gym and working with weights. But for the long term, you know, it's not a good idea to, you know, like use them as your sole weight training.
Right. You're not going to like run into some jacked influencer and who's honestly going to tell you like, I ended up this way from my 8-week band program. Download it now for $9.99. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's also a really good, bands are a great way to like throw in some extra volume at the end of a workout after you've done some heavy weightlifting. That's easy to recover from. And one more thing I'll say about bands is, really with bands you have to do so many stinking reps that you're really just building muscular endurance through most sets versus like actually building muscular size and strength.
Yeah.
And, you know, overall speaking.
But there's something to be said about like you're on a 2-week trip and that's all that you have access to, that and your body weight and, you know, the great outdoors. So we have tons and tons of workouts. We have free downloads of travel workouts. Again, if you go to that digitalbarbell.com/free, lots of bands are included in that. So there is something about like not only like keeping the habit alive of your like schedule, but the way that you feel when you go out there and you do something for 20 minutes, if you're on like an extended trip, the way that you're going to feel in the moment, afterwards, during your trip, and not only that, but when you return back to your normal, you know, your normal status quo, it will make a significant difference for you rather than if you just did nothing for that period of time.
Absolutely. Perfect use for bands is for extended travel.
All right, last question. Jonathan mentioned he is nursing a shoulder injury. I'm nursing an Achilles injury. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on the mindset adjustments you have to make when you have an injury, aside from patience, gratitude, and perspective, of course. I love that.
I think she's already on to the main things that you have to pay attention to.
Patience, gratitude, and perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we both had our fair share of injuries and tweaks over the years, and like 99% of coming back from those kinds of things is a mental thing. Like if you don't train at all because you got a sore elbow, like you're going to have trouble staying on track and making any progress at all. And the reason you stopped training was just what was going on in your head. You forgot to make the connection that there's still a lot of other things that you can do and that is totally worth doing.
Yeah, that's where the perspective comes in. Like, you know, you have a lower or an upper body injury, so that you're, you know, look, the perspective is now like, oh, hey, I get to pay more attention. Like, you know, in this example, you have a lower body injury. Hey, I get to pay more love and attention to my upper body. Let me see what I can do. Maybe like, you're like, oh, I really want to get good at pull-ups right now. Like, you know, use the time to like refocus yourself and be like, okay, instead of like, I mean, I've been through this too, where you're just like, oh, I'm depressed looking at my current training plan. I'm like, this is this, like, I can't do half these things. Instead, like, okay, let me have the opportunity to work harder on these things. I'm going to double down on this section that I can do because, and like, whenever I come out of this injury, I'm going to be so much better at this particular set of things. Like, I'm going to be better at bench press. I'm going to be better at pull-ups. I'm going to be better at, I'm going to be stronger at curls, whatever it is, strict press, rather than being like, I'm going to be worse at these things.
Yep. And one other thing I would throw in there, and I've struggled with this in the past, is like avoiding comparison when you have an injury, not necessarily to what other people in the gym are doing, but to a past version of yourself when you could do something that you can't do right now because you're injured. It can be easy to get down on yourself and be like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to do that again. Like, this used to be so easy for me, or like, it used to be so good when I could do whatever I can't do now. Like, try to let that go. Like many things in life, like, stop focusing on the things that you can't control and put that effort into controlling the things that you can control, and just eliminate the temptation to compare yourself to others, and especially to a previous uninjured version of yourself. It'll only keep you feeling sad and weigh you down if you do that. So watch out for that. Like you've already said like 5 times already about the free resources. There's so many free ways to work with us and like learn from our experience. So head to that website, and we have different training options for you. If your current workouts aren't working for you and you want to try something better, we have 3 different training options, and we do offer a 2-week money back guarantee on our training program options too. So how can you beat that? And if you're interested in nutrition coaching, we can talk about that. Just send us a message or submit the form on the website.
And if you're watching this, we finally got our hands on these shirts. I had to have them sent to my mom, so whenever they first got released, so we didn't get to like see them actually until just like last week, and so I think they came out really, really good.
You think the back would show on camera if you turn around?
You turn around.
There we go. Can you see it?
Turn around.
Can you see
Let
it?
Debbie be nice.
There you go.
DigitalBarbell.com. You are sweaty.
It's hot in here. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you ever want to get a question in the queue for your future episode, just send us a message on Instagram, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below, and we'll get to it. Thanks for joining. Have a good day.